You're watching Taylor Time. Today we'll be making Oreo cupcakes with cream cheese buttercream, a little bit of chocolate drizzle, a little bit of Oreo crumbs, also topped with an Oreo because that is my favorite cookie. You can use any kind of cookie, but I'm going to be using Oreos today. So for our batter, we will be using crushed Oreos, flour, egg whites, vanilla extract. I like to use a little bit of vanilla paste too because it tastes good in my opinion. A little bit of salt, sugar, milk, and butter. So today I'm using a stand mixer as well, but you don't have to use it if you want to get a good workout in. I will admit it's a little bit tough. I've done it before, which is why I love to use stand mixers. And now we're going to add our delicious butter. I'm going to start with this first. We can add this as our first ingredient. And now once you've had that in your bowl, you want to put it back onto your stand mixer. And I like to use my paddle attachment to mix my cake batter. And you want to turn that on to about medium speed. And you want to let it whip until it gets pretty white. So while our butter is whipping, we're going to prepare our flour mixture. This is what's going to help bind your entire cake together. I'm going to dump that straight into the bowl. Now we can add our salt along with our baking powder. Now one thing I will say is a lot of people get baking powder and baking soda confused. So make sure you read labels. I've done that before and it's a little bit disappointing when your cake doesn't rise. So just note that baking powder is activated by heat and baking soda is activated by any kind of acidity. That's why they're usually used in chocolate cakes as well. So we can give this a good mix. So once your butter is nice and whipped up, you want to add your granulated sugar. I like to add a lot of sugar because cakes are supposed to be sweet. And I have a really big sweet tooth, and so does the rest of my family. So now you can go ahead and mix that up. So as that is mixing, we can go ahead and add our precious vanilla extract and our vanilla bean paste. So once that's mixed together, we can finally add our egg whites. You can use egg yolks too. You can include those in here. But I feel like when you use a white batter against the chocolate cookies, I think it looks a lot better, has a lot more contrast. So you want to add your eggs pretty slow. If you dump more than one in there, it's okay. But just know that you'll have to mix it for a little bit longer. Don't worry, we've all done it. I've done it multiple times. So just be cautious about that. But if you make a mistake, it's perfectly fine. So now once you have all of your eggs into your bowl, you want to take a spatula and scrape down all the sides. So once that is nicely incorporated, we are going to alternate our flour mixture and our milk. So another thing you want to do with your batter is you want to alternate your flour mixture and your milk mixture, because if you add all your flour in and then you add all your milk in, or vice versa, it'll end up with like a super sloshy kind of batter. And if you add your milk in and then you add your flour in, it'll end up kind of like a doughy kind of texture, almost like bread, and we really don't want that. We want it to be like a super smooth, velvety vanilla batter. So now we're going to add a little bit of our milk. Now I can go ahead and add some more flour. So now we are going to take our spatula and scrape down the sides once again. Again, we cannot make any mistakes. I've learned so many times. So now we can add our milk once more. Again, be very careful, it will splash. And again, just to be very precautious, I like to lift up my stand mixer when I add in my flour. I know I keep saying over and over that it will splash, but I'm just giving you a warning. And now, lastly, we can add the rest of our milk. So now we can add our last bit of flour. You always want to start and finish with your flour. So now we can just dump it in, pour it all in. There you go. And give it one last good mix. So once your batter is nice and combined, we are going to add my favorite part of this. We are going to add the chocolate cookies. Now this is very precious, so be very careful. Oops. Always make sure to add a good bit of these, because this is what makes the cupcake. This is amazing right there. So you only really have to mix it a little bit. We can go ahead and scrape the sides of our bowl. Just to make sure we have the cookies in every single cupcake. And now we can mix this one last time. So now we can take this off the stand mixer. Once we are done with our batter, we can take our muffin pan or cupcake tin, whatever you like to call it. And I like to use a scoop. This is actually an ice cream scoop, but I like to use this just to make it a little bit easier instead of having to take spoons and dip it in there. And it's a little bit cleaner as well. And you get nice even cupcakes. They all have the same amount of batter. So now I'm going to scrape some into my ice cream scooper. I almost forgot the name. I don't like to fill it up all the way, because if you fill up your cupcake trays or cupcake liners all the way, then your cupcakes will explode and they won't be very pretty. So now we have all of our cupcake liners nice and filled. So we're going to put this in the oven. I like to use the convection setting, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees for about, I'd say about 15 to 20 minutes. Just take a little toothpick and poke it in there, or a knife or anything. And if it comes out clean, then it's perfectly ready to go. So this is the part of the baking where it gets serious and when you're supposed to get excited and you're supposed to get really hyped, because this is the best part. So we're going to make our icing next. We are going to use powdered sugar, butter, powdered sugar, butter, cream cheese, vanilla, and a little bit of milk if it's needed. It's not required. It's just if your cream cheese is a little bit thick. I usually don't have to use the milk, but sometimes I do. So now we can take our butter in our stand mixer. Again, after getting a stand mixer, my whole entire life was changed. I am never going back to hand mixing because that is a real workout. We can go ahead and include our butter. Now we can put our cream cheese. This is going to make your cream cheese icing right here. If you don't have this, it's just plain vanilla icing. But if you have this cream cheese, it makes it 10 times better. Also, Always make sure your ingredients are at room temperature. So now we can take another paddle attachment and pop it right onto our stand mixer. And you want to put that on your stand mixer on about medium high to medium, somewhere in between there. Again, it depends on your stand mixer. Again, if you're using a hand mixer as well, just put that on about medium as well. You want to mix your cream cheese butter mixture until it's pretty smooth, kind of like we did the cake batter. All right, so now we can make this from a 10 maybe to like a 20,000. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and add our powdered sugar. Again, you want to add your powdered sugar slowly, like we did our flour. As you can see, it's all over the place. And you want to put this in about medium-low, just so it doesn't splash. Then get this one last good mix. And now this is our sweet, precious vanilla extract. We're going to add this into our cream cheese buttercream. It's not necessarily required in your cream cheese buttercream, but it really amps up the flavor. We can go ahead and fill up our piping bag. And we can also use a tip on top if you'd like to. It's really good practice if you want to get more into baking, to practice decorating on cupcakes with different piping tips. It's good for parties, kind of amp up your baking skills a little bit. And you can do so many different designs. You don't just have to do a circle tip, or I see a lot of star tips. But you can, they have so many different ones. They even have like Russian piping tips. I have those. I just recently got them actually. And they are really, really nice and they're super pretty. So now we can take our piping bag and put it over a cup. You can use your hand if you want to. Some people like to do that, like my sister. But this makes it a little bit easier for me to just put it on a cup. Because now we can take our cream cheese icing and just put it into the piping bag. You can use a cup as like your little personal hand. When your cupcakes are nice and baked and cooled, make sure they're completely cooled, because if they're not, when you put your buttercream on top of your cupcake, it will melt, and that's not a very pretty sight. So we want to keep everything clean and precise and make sure our cupcakes are cool. So for icing with a round tip, I like to just hover over the cupcake just a little bit and start squeezing, 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 and just boop, right on top. And that's pretty much it. That's really easy, actually. It's a lot easier than you really think it is. So now we are going to take some chocolate. We're going to take some milk chocolate. And this is an ingredient you've probably never heard of before. A lot of people don't know what this is or have never heard of it before. This is powdered food coloring. And these are especially used for chocolate because water, okay, so here's a little science lesson. Water and chocolate don't mix, because when you add water to chocolate, it seizes up and it just becomes stiff. It's not workable, it's not pipeable. So us bakers have innovated powdered food coloring. So this is black powdered food coloring. I'm going to make my milk chocolate black because I think it'll go with the Oreo kind of theme. So now I'm going to pop this into your refrigerator, into your microwave at 30-second increments. So once your chocolate is nice and melted, you want it to be very smooth. Make sure it has no chunks in it. So I like to take just a little bit of shortening, not much. This is just going to make it easier to drizzle since we are going to drizzle it onto the cupcakes. This shortening is kind of like butter, but not really. Shortening is completely oil, and oil reacts really well with chocolate. So it'll just make the consistency thinner. It won't seize it up like water usually does. So now we can go ahead and add our powdered food coloring. Usually when you use darker colors like black or purple or sometimes blue, you sometimes have to use a good bit just because, you know, they're very saturated colors. So don't worry if you have to use a good bit, but just be prepared. Don't be surprised when you have to use a good bit. So now that we have our beautiful chocolate, it's nice and colored, we can go ahead and add this into a piping bag. If you like to, you can use a Ziploc bag. Don't be ashamed because I do it all the time. This is just for, you know, the visual pleasure. I feel like a piping bag is a lot prettier than a Ziploc bag, so we're using this today. So I'm going to use my handy dandy little cup. And now we can just cut a little part, the piping tip off, because we want a really thin drizzle as well. All right. If you have multiple cupcakes, you want to be kind of quick with this part because the chocolate definitely does seize up. So, whoops. Kind of like a zebra, we're going to just go back and forth. Whoops. So now, since our cupcake is now 1,000 times better with the chocolate on top, we can make this 10 million times better. So we're going to take our chocolate sandwich cookies. Yes, that's right, we are using even more. You can never get enough of these. So I like to cut this diagonally. You want to cut it pretty fast because if you cut it slow, it'll crumble, and you want it to stay in one piece. Sprinkle those on top. Beware, this does make a mess, so be careful. Oops, let me wipe my hands. Again, I wasn't kidding about I always make a mess in the kitchen. It's kind of hard to control sometimes. You just gotta do what you gotta do. Because when you make a mess, you end up with pretty cupcakes. We have even more finished cupcakes. So this is the process on how to make delicious Oreo cupcakes with cream cheese buttercream, a chocolate drizzle, and a little chocolate sandwich cookie on top. These are super delicious for any beginner, any advanced baker, doesn't matter what level of baking you're on, any event, a wedding, a party, anything, or just to eat at home. So it wouldn't be the proper way to end a Taylor Time episode without tasting one of our beautiful creations. So I'm going to end this off in the perfect way possible by taking a big bite out of one of our delicious cupcakes.